me bring back in my guests for this hour, criminal defense attorneys David Bruno as well as Eric Faddis. Also joining us now, forensic psychologist Dr. John Delatorre. Dr. Delatorre, thank you so much for joining me as well. And I want to start with you because the reason I wanted to have you on was we've seen a spate of these cases where both young and older women are finding themselves in a position where they choose to get rid of babies. Help us understand the psychology of this. Now, let's start with Georgia. You have a woman who is an established family. She has 3 kids. She's hiding the pregnancy. She lives in apparently a very nice home in Forsyth County and decides to make this choice. Any sense of what might be going on?
It doesn't matter for any of these cases that we're going to be discussing. There's going to be multiple branches that we're going to need to investigate. And the first one, obviously, is societal issues. There are a lot of things that are happening in our society right now that make it very difficult for birth givers to actually get the resources that they need. However, individually, what we can see is fear. Fear and pressure are the 2 primary decision-making motivators. Right? It's possible that these individuals just don't believe that they're going to be able to be adequate mothers, or they can provide the resources that they need. So through that fear, they make these decisions that otherwise they wouldn't have made if they individually had what they believe they needed to have in order to raise these children.
Now, we've got another case where a younger person in their teens puts a couple of babies aside. Those babies did not make it. They're being charged with involuntary manslaughter. Do you see a difference between a young mind, let's say a 16-year-old in that case, and a woman here who's more advanced age, definitely of adult age, making that choice? Do you see sort of, in terms of what's going on in their minds, the differences between a teen making that decision and a woman of this age?
Just a little bit of a difference, and I think it has more to do with impulsivity, right? So I think the younger you are, the more likely you are to feel the pressure, to feel fear, but then to act impulsively. I think the older you are, you're considerate of certain things, but it's really about resources. When you're younger, you're not quite sure how you're going to be able to do anything with your life anymore, and so I think that's part of the decision making. So it's more impulsivity, I think, the younger you are.
All right, I want to play some sound from a case that we covered right here on CourtTV. It was the Avila case. Now, this young lady, she put her baby in a dumpster, and again, another miracle. Some folks who were dumpster diving, looking for food, found the baby. Baby did survive. She took the stand to explain what was going through her head when she made that decision. I want to listen. Then, Doctor, I got a quick question for you. Let's listen.
When she told you you were pregnant, what did you think at the time?
I'm not sure. I kind of blacked out.
Were you in that moment aware that you were going to birth a baby the next day?
No, absolutely not. I just remember sitting there. And then the baby was on the toilet or on the floor. I don't remember.
You don't remember if he was in the toilet bowl or on the floor? So, what were you thinking in that moment?
I was in shock. Like, how could this happen?
All right, Dr. Delatorre, you heard she mentioned blackout. She talked about being in shock. And one thing you haven't mentioned at all is this idea of postmortem depression. How do all those things play into these decisions?
Well, postmortem depression really happens, I think, a lot more than I think people realize. There's an expectation that all women are going to automatically be the world's greatest mothers, and the reality is birth givers are humans, and they can have all different kinds of emotions, but the pressure society puts on them. Not only that, not only those pressures, but oftentimes we're not educating our young people when it comes to healthy choices, healthy life choices, and what human sexuality actually means. And because of that, we end up in situations like this, particularly now when there's so much polarization when it comes to what should children actually learn.
All right, let me bring my attorneys in, Eric Faddis, David Bruno. Eric, I'll start with you. Obviously, the reason I asked about postmortem depression, I would think if you're representing one of these young ladies in this situation, that's an area you would have to investigate as part of your defense.
Oh, no question. I would get a doctor like Dr. Delatorre, who's talking to you all now, to really explain to the jury the dynamics of what is going on for that mother. You know, if you're defending the case, you want to try to put the jury in the shoes of that mother. Try to get them to feel that stress, that pressure, that fear, that anxiety about this momentous life decision that they are incapable of handling under those circumstances. And so I think that if your defense, that is really what you have to convey to the jury in those types of cases.
You know, what's interesting, David Bruno, is in the 16-year-old case, they have decided to charge her as a juvenile. Your thoughts on defending her and also the choice by prosecutors in that case to charge her as a juvenile?
Wow, that's a tough decision to make for prosecutors because you do have the waiver. But there's a lot of science that has come out about the cognitive abilities and the development of juveniles. We've had that U.S. Supreme Court case about the sentencing of juveniles. So certainly it's a fact-sensitive deliberation that prosecutors have about waiver. But, you know, Michael, to your point, education, I think education needs to be aggressive here. And that is, number one, the deterrence with sentences like this 15-year sentence for Avila. Also, the option for the safe harbor laws, the ability to take the infants at a very early stage with no questions asked to the hospitals, to the police departments, and to the fire stations is critical to get out when a lot of moms may be dealing with these various different issues and coming to decisions like this one that we're seeing on the screen. There's an option that doesn't involve prison. Number one, deterrence. Number two, education about the laws that allow them to turn the babies over.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so difficult to understand why the decision is made to dump a baby in a dumpster rather than to a fire station. That's the part I have difficulty with. But, gentlemen, stand by. Dr. Delatorre, thank you so much for joining us. Help us enlighten some of the issues behind this incredible spate of cases involving young ladies and their babies. We're going to come back in just a minute. When we do,